Glad that you're here. I'm so glad you're joining me for this masterclass. Look, if you're here because you know a lack of communication skills is holding you back, if you're here because you already know that you're not being good at communication and you're not being able to articulate yourself clearly is holding you back in your career, if you know that a lack of communication skills is causing you to have low levels of self-confidence, then I want you to know you're in the right place. I've dedicated my life to studying this craft. There are a lot of things that I am not good at. If you ask me questions, for example, about astrophysics, Newtonian physics, and quantum physics, well, I can't help you, mate. Can't help you with any of that. I barely understand it. But if you're here because you want to learn more about communication skills, I've taken hundreds and thousands of students through my stage programs. There's nothing that I haven't seen. So you're in the right place. And I'm so excited for you with this masterclass. Now, as we begin, I want to share with you a little bit about my journey so that you get a bit more context to be able to understand how I've gotten to where I am today. So let me ask you a question as we begin our time together. What do you think the 13-year-old version of me wanted more than anything? When I was a boy, what do you think I wanted more than anything? No, it's not money, it's not cars, it's not fancy watches. No. Do you know what I wanted? I wanted to find love. Yeah, I know it's a little bit cheesy. Hopefully you're not lactose intolerant. But yes, I wanted to find love. And I remember asking my dad at the time for advice. I said, Dad, you've got a girlfriend, you've got mum. How did you find mum? How did you find love? So I asked him for advice, and I remember, I'll never forget this. He looks me dead in the eyes with all the wisdom in his ears, and he says, no money, no the honey, boy. And I remember thinking to myself, damn it rhymes. It must be true. All right, so how am I going to find money? And when I was 13, it was the year 2000. I can already feel you trying to do the math. Oh, how old is Vin right now? That's right. He's moving into his 40s gradually. Back to the story. So at the time, the year 2000, I mean, how the hell was I going to make money to find a girlfriend, to find love? So in the year 2000, there was a website called eBay that was slowly emerging. I mean, no one uses eBay anymore, right? You most likely use Amazon now. But in the year 2000, eBay was the thing. It was brand new. Only the cool kids knew what it was. Yes, I was one of the cool kids. I was one of the nerds. So I thought to myself, okay, so how can I use this eBay thing to make money? As I was searching eBay, I discovered this product called an MP3 player. Now at the time, no one knew what an MP3 player was. In the year 2000, people were still using Walkmans and Discmans. And a Discman, in case you didn't know what it is, it's a big music device that's about this big, and then you open it, you put a CD inside, then you close it, and you play music. And every time you walk, the music would skip, it would skip, it would skip. Infuriating. This is why this MP3 player thing was just amazing. It was going to revolutionize how people listen to music. So I thought, I could buy these things on eBay, and then I could sell them to my friends for double the price. This is how I'm going to make money. Now, as I was going through the buying process on eBay, I encountered a problem. I needed something called a CC, but I've never come across this thing called a CC before. What the hell is this? So I clicked the question mark, and it says a CC is a credit card. I mean, I didn't know what a credit card was at that time. And then I quickly studied the credit card. I mean, I didn't have one, but I quickly realized Mum and Dad had a credit card. So I started to watch them use this credit card thing. It was a piece of plastic that had a string of numbers, an expiry date, secret numbers. And then I started to realize that you could buy things with this piece of plastic online. And I started to watch the transaction process, and I quickly learned that Mum and Dad could buy something on this credit card, but they wouldn't be able to see the transactions that were made on the credit card until the end of the month. So that means there was a 4-week window of opportunity. It means that I could buy something on this credit card at the beginning of the month, and they wouldn't find out until the end of the month. This was the perfect scenario for me. And then I studied it further just in case for contingencies. Banks back then didn't have net banking. They couldn't email you. They couldn't text you. So if there was a suspicious transaction, do you know what they did? They would call the household. But then if they called my household, I was the only English-speaking person in the household. This was the perfect storm. I was like, this is a genius plan. I could borrow Mum and Dad's credit card. So I did. And I remember borrowing their credit card late at night, connecting to the internet via dial-up. Tell me if you remember what dial-up is. So I connect to the internet via the slowest form of internet, ebay.com.au, because I'm from Australia. Search MP3 players. Change the quantity from 1 to 20. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. I don't know what money is. I'm 13. Check out. I've just spent over $1,500 on Mum and Dad's credit card. I was so excited, but then very quickly this feeling of explosive diarrhea hits me. And I remember for a moment I have Asian parents. But then very quickly the fear subsides and it goes away because you're 13, you're invincible, right? And the crazy thing is, 7 days later, these MP3 players arrive. And then another 7 days pass, I managed to sell every single one to my friends at school. Within 1 week, I'd made $3,000. And I thought to myself, I'm not even doing drugs. I've been able to make all of this money. Mum and Dad are going to be so proud of me. They're going to look at all the other children and say to their friends and their family, is your child like mine? Can they make $3,000 a week? I thought they were going to be so proud of me. And then the dreaded day arrived. Oh yeah, the dreaded day arrived where the snail mail finally delivered the transactions in the post. And I remember sitting in my room that day. I was sitting there almost like prepared to die. And I was sitting there with a Lego tin box filled with $3,000 of cash. It was a bunch of $5 notes, $10 notes and coins. And I was sitting there with a Lego tin box filled with that cash. And I was sitting there, and my mum's the kind of woman that when she gets angry, you can feel it in your soul. So I can kind of hear Mum and Dad have a commotion in the kitchen, and I go, this is the moment, brace yourself. My mum's in the kitchen. At this point, she's just read the transaction in the list of transactions that were made. She realized that she checked with Dad. Dad said it wasn't me. The only person at the time it could have been was me. Mum now starts storming down the hallway. Dad just copies whatever Mum does because he doesn't know what's going on half the time. So my mum's storming down the hallway. I swear it's as if she kicks down my door. When she comes in, she sees me with all that money. Now I'm scared. Now I'm panicking. I see my mum all pissed off. I grab the money in self-defense. I throw it at her. There was this moment where money was fluttering all over the air. Mum went from angry to more angry because she was convinced at this point I was doing drugs. And then my dad went from angry to, what the hell, man? This is so good. There's so much the money. Mum was getting a fly swat. She reversed it. She was trying to smack my bottom. Dad was trying to high-five me amongst the chaos, smiling. This was my introduction to entrepreneurship. It was one of the most confusing moments of my life. And I remember being happy, confused, excited, sad. My ass was hurting from the fly swat. And as I was laying there that night, thinking to myself, what the hell just happened? There was a thought that I couldn't shake. At that point in my life, when I was 13 years old, there were certain rules in my reality that I had believed to be true. For example, one of the rules, one of the laws of reality for a 13-year-old was that I couldn't make more than $10 an hour. Because at the time, I used to work at a cherry farm, so I'd pick cherries during my school holidays, and I would make $10 an hour. And that was the most money I thought to myself I could ever make as a 13-year-old. But then I couldn't shake the thought. In the last week, I'd sold $3,000 worth of MP3 players. And I didn't spend the whole week selling. I spent about 10 hours talking to my friends about the MP3 player, and then they purchased it. So then I went $3,000 divided by 10 hours. Wait a second, that's $300 an hour. How did I just 30x my earning capacity as a 13-year-old? That means the rules of my reality that I thought were true, the limitations that I had set, weren't real. And that's when I discovered one of the most powerful lessons in my life. And the lesson is, reality is negotiable. Reality is negotiable. I mean, think about the world we live in right now. My son watches a YouTuber who reviews toys for a living. And that kid makes millions of dollars every single year. And my wife watches a worm farmer who teaches you how to build your own worm farm. That worm farmer makes millions of dollars a year teaching people how to start their own worm farms. And I mean, let's put aside my family's examples and think about the examples in your life. Which content creators do you follow? And if you think about the content creators that you follow, think about the lifestyles they've been able to build for themselves. What is the common skill that all of these people have that allows them to negotiate the reality that they desire? What do you think that common skill is? It's the skill of communication. As you learn how to level up your communication skills, you're then able to level up the reality you're able to negotiate. You see, the life you currently live right now, it's highly dependent on your ability to communicate. Because whatever reality you have currently, that matches your level of communication ability. So as you increase your communication ability, you're able to level up the reality you can negotiate. Can you see why this skill set is so powerful? Now, as we begin our time together, I want to make you a few promises. At the end of the 2-hour mark on this masterclass, I'm going to make sure that you've mastered and you've learned 3 of the most powerful communication frameworks that's going to level up your communication ability dramatically. Now, the second promise I'm going to make you is that at the end of the 2-hour mark, I'm going to give you access to a booklet that is called the Mastery Cycle. And the Mastery Cycle is a 3-step process that's going to help you master any particular aspect of communication you want. So you're going to get access to that completely free. And then after that, I'm going to share with you, if you choose to, how you can continue the learning journey with me. And then at the end, I'm going to answer a few common questions that people always ask and give you pragmatic strategies on how you can improve your communication skills. All right, are you ready to begin the journey? Are you ready to learn the frameworks? Are you ready to level up your communication skills? If you're ready, let's do this. Make sure you've got a glass of water. Make sure you've got a beverage or something. Coffee is the desired choice for me. So guess what's in here? That's right, a big jug of iced coffee. Take a sip of water. We are about to deep dive into the masterclass. One of the first things that I believe is critical as we go on our communication skills journey together is before you go on any journey, you need to have a map. Why? Because if you don't have a map and you go on a random journey, you end up at a random destination. And that's one of the biggest problems in the world we live in today. Most people don't plan their learning journey. And do you know what happens if you don't plan your learning journey? Then the algorithms on social media just show you random videos at random times. So your learning journey becomes random. And then the destination you arrive at becomes random. And then is that random destination where you actually wanted to go? No, it's not. So before we start to learn the frameworks, I'm going to share with you what the journey with me is going to look like. And I'm going to draw a graph. I do apologize in advance. You're like, oh no, why are you drawing a graph? This is the only graph I'm going to draw, but it's a very important graph. All right, so you ready? Get your fingers ready. But if you take notes old school, feel free to use a pen too. I love the old school way. Now, when it comes to the journey that I'm going to map out, what I'm about to draw for you is what's known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, the Dunning-Kruger effect, I'm going to share that with you specific to the journey of communication. And I want you to know that this axis here represents knowledge. Okay, so that's the knowledge axis. And up here is the axis for confidence. Confidence. Here we go. Now, when you look at this journey here, the first destination that I want to bring your attention to is when you're starting any journey in any area of expertise, for example, for you right now, it's communication skills, well, then where do you start? You start right here. Generally, we start at a place where we have very little knowledge on the topic, and as a result of having very little knowledge on the topic, we feel very low levels of self-confidence. That's the first spot where we all begin. It's something we all have in common as we learn new things. Now, as you leave the first destination and move to the second destination of the learning journey, this is a really unfortunate place if you get stuck in. Because the first destination you get to is this destination here. Right there. And do you know what that's called? That's called the peak of Mount Stupid. The peak of Mount Stupid. Now, the reason why it's called the peak of Mount Stupid is, let me explain. It's the peak of Mount Stupid because you've just started the learning journey. And if you look here, you've only just started to improve your knowledge base. But look at your level of confidence. Your level of confidence is sky high. And I mean, I know you've done this. I know I've done this. I know all my stage crew behind the scenes have done this. I remember when I first learned about the keto diet. I don't know, have you learned about the keto diet? Well, when I first learned about the keto diet, I'd watched 2 podcasts on the keto diet, 5 YouTube videos on it, and I walked around as if I was the expert on keto. I was the expert on the keto diet. And then the moment anybody asked me any difficult questions, it would quickly reveal I didn't know anything, and I was on top of the peak of Mount Stupid. Have you experienced this? Have you been through this with an area of expertise that you kind of touched on and then started to believe you were the bee's knees? Oh, we all get stuck here. But you've got to be careful not to get stuck there. Because it's so easy just to headline read and then all of a sudden live on top of the peak of Mount Stupid. And this is one of the main reasons why people don't get anywhere in life. They don't get anywhere because they haven't created depth in their understanding. They haven't increased their knowledge base. Because as you increase your knowledge base, that's how you're able to then get further ahead. not by just shallow learning, it's about deep learning. And this is why you're here. So the fact that you're here, you're no longer going to stay on top at the peak of Mount Stupid. We're going to move to the third destination. Now, the third destination is so kind of bad, unfortunately. Now, it's a different kind of bad to the peak of Mount Stupid, because the next destination, oh man, it's down here, right there. And that destination there, unfortunately, is known as the Valley of Despair. Yep, the Valley of Despair. Vin, why is it called the Valley of Despair? Let me explain. Because if you look at the Valley of Despair, and you look at the location of the Valley of Despair, all of a sudden you notice now, I mean, it's so weird. Because at this point, you've increased your knowledge base. But for some reason, as you've increased your knowledge base, some reason, your level of confidence now has dropped significantly. I mean, why did that happen? Now, again, I know you've experienced this. Think about this, right? A lot of smart people say this. A lot of smart people who are very intelligent, they say, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And sometimes that thought can become very overwhelming. And also, as you increase your knowledge base, sometimes when you're learning a new topic, do you ever feel like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose, it's all too much, it's all too much information. For example, in the world of communication, imagine as you started to learn with me, I started to teach you the importance of vocal mastery. So there are 5 different ways you can manipulate your voice to create different sounds. But not only do you have to think about the way you change the way you sound, you have to think about, well, what am I going to do with my hand gestures? And at the same time, you've got to think about, what am I going to do with my facial expressions? And then at the same time, while controlling body language and voice, you also have to think about sentence structure, content structure. You have to think about the graph you're going to draw. And as you think about all of this, you go, oh my goodness, this is all too hard, it's all so difficult. And then you fall victim to falling into the valley of despair. And this happens for another reason. If you think about the world we live in, unfortunately, the way social media works and the algorithms work, as a result of learning more and increasing knowledge, you also start to feel more hopeless. Because think about your social media journey. Do you ever experience this when you open up TikTok or Instagram or YouTube and you just say, I'm just going to have a quick squiz, I'm just going to have a quick look, just a quick look. And then you take your phone, you open up the YouTube app, and then you just scroll through a few times, and then you go, you look at the watch and you're like, what the frick, I just lost 30 minutes of my time. You see, the algorithms know you so well, and they show you things that are not necessarily good for your learning journey, but they show you things to keep you hooked, and they show you things to keep you on their platform. And that's you learning random bits of information at random times with poor structure. And while it feels good because all of the dopamine hits that you're getting from learning new things, it just gets you to go further and further down the valley of despair. And I'm going to give you an example of what happens here. Because I'll give you a direct example from my life and see if you can think of one from your life. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, I really wanted to learn a lot more about wealth creation. So what did I do? I started to increase my knowledge. I started to listen to podcasts on wealth creation, read books on wealth creation, watch YouTube videos on wealth creation. And I kept doing this. And I remember I would watch a video, and then I'd go, wow, the dollar cost averaging concept in investing is fantastic. I absolutely love this. What a cool concept. Save video for later. I'll make sure I apply that. I never go back to that video. I never apply the lesson of dollar cost averaging. Next time I'm on YouTube, I look up wealth creation videos again, and I go, oh, I really like this concept of investing in ETFs, in index funds. I love this concept, save video for later. I never go back to it. I never apply the lessons I learned. And I just keep learning more about wealth creation. And the more I learn, for some reason, I've never been able to work it out. I go, why am I feeling more defeated and more hopeless than ever before? It's because when you keep learning and you do nothing with that knowledge, you fall victim to going down deeper and deeper into the valley of despair. That's the problem that I think so many people in the world are suffering from. They feel a lack of inspiration, they feel hopeless, and in psychology they call it learned hopelessness. They experience all of these feelings and emotions because they don't realize what the algorithms are doing to them. I mean, ask yourself, is this one of the first times you're sitting down and learning in a structured way? And you're going to go through the entire 2-hour masterclass and learn in a structured way? Have you been learning in 15-second random patterns where you're allowing the algorithms to dictate your learning journey? Is this one of the first times you're taking control of your learning journey? Well, if it is, you can kind of see where the problem lies, right? Now, I'm going to share with you how to get out of the valley of despair. Because if this is where you are, I'm going to teach you how to get out of the valley of despair. And I'm going to teach you how to go up this path here. And this is not a destination, this is a journey. And this, Dunning-Kruger, the original creator of this graph, he calls this the slope of enlightenment. But I've remixed it a little bit. I call this the slope of mastery. The slope of mastery. I'm going to share with you exactly how to get up the slope of mastery so that you feel inspired, so that you feel empowered, so that you don't make the wrong decision and go down the valley of despair. It doesn't matter where you are right now on this map. It doesn't matter if you're just starting out. It doesn't matter if you feel like, damn it, I feel like I'm at the peak of Mount Stupid. Or it doesn't matter if you feel like you're in the valley of despair. I got you. Like I said to you, I've taken hundreds of thousands of people through my stage programs to level up their communication ability. I've seen it all. Regardless of where you are, we're going to get you towards the trajectory of going up the slope of mastery. We're going to create change. Don't be so attached to who you are in the present that you don't give the future version of you a chance. All right, now that we've got the basics sorted, you ready for the frameworks? These frameworks you're about to learn, it's going to completely transform the way you communicate moving forward. I'm so excited for you. You ready? All right, let's do it. You see, the first framework that we're going to learn, and I'm just going to take a sip of water if you don't mind. A quick sip of water for Vin. You should take a sip of water too. Stay hydrated.